Well, many thanks for coming back. Thank you so much for a second chat on this episode. Delighted to be talking with award-winning author Eugene Yelchin. Thank you so much for joining.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it, Jason.
Absolutely, absolutely. There have been some big events in your professional life recently that I want to make sure that we take some time to honor and recognize. To start out with, I was going to ask you a little bit about the Speaking Truth workshops that you've been doing. So just curious about the work you're doing in that area.
Thank you. Well, it started with I had an event at San Francisco University, and the person who interviewed me was Dashka Slater. Do you know who she is?
Hmm.
She,
Hmm.
she's a terrific writer and a great journalist. And one of her questions was, um, "What is the job of a writer for children today?" Excuse me. And I kind of felt that my answer was, and out of that answer came that workshop, is that because our children now live in a very noisy culture,
Hmm.
fast, very noisy culture, they a lot of stuff coming at them without them wanting that, and I think that. Our job is to create a quiet and a safe space for them as authors in which they can connect with who they really are, not what the media is telling them to be. So the place in which they can hear their thoughts and
Hmm.
hear their heartbeats and just connect with themselves. Um, And thinking about that, I thought that they can only actually accept that space if they read something that is about them, not literally about them, but about the human condition of that age.
Hmm.
What are the challenges, or what are the joys of that age? It has to be true. And so sometimes, especially in the times we live in, the truth is very unpleasant. And we can't hide that truth from them because it'll make it worse. So, what does it mean to tell truth to children who otherwise either protected by their families or their environments, or exposed too early to things they should not have been exposed to?
Hmm.
It's fascinating for me to see. Usually I see it on airplanes, but you see very young children watching, for example, horror movies.
Yeah.
And it's like it completely dulls you. Are you that dull that it doesn't affect you anymore? So just kind of getting in touch with their childhood that I think is now kind of often gets lost because of our generation, what we do to our kids, what we did to our kids. My children are already older, and I started teaching that, not teaching really, but it's sort of a sharing workshop where on the example of three books, Breaking Stalin's Nose, Genius Under the Table, and I wish I didn't have to tell you this. I
Hmm.
sort of tell them what I try to kind of unravel what it means to be honest about yourself, first of all. And then we end up, which is really the fun part, we end up making zins. So
Hmm.
there are tables with all the supplies, and the adults, and whether they're young and whether they're faculty members. So the last one I did at the university in Washington, and they rushed to the adults, right? They rushed to
Yeah.
the table. They were making their little books, and I thought those books were really terrific. Some. So that's how. sorry for the very long answer, but that's kind of how it came about.
Great answer. That's a great answer, and so much truth packed in there. And I love to hear about the approach that you take with creating the zines, and such a great uh, exploration of the way that people can be seen, and to take that and kind of make it your own.
Yeah, absolutely. And the prerequisite for it is that you have to and it changes, depends on the audience, but when there's a right kind of mood, the right atmosphere, and the right people, um, they feel safe and they feel courageous. And so you can say, let's make a little book or whatever you're going to make, with the supplies that about a moment in your life that you feel was really important because it's changed your life in some way. And
Nice.
not only they do fairly courageous stories, but they also visually they're quite spectacular. It's really,
Yeah.
really interesting.
Yeah, that leads me to ask about. I wish I didn't have to tell you this because you have this great mingling of the visual, and you also have the story that's part of that that's told through those visuals. What was that creative process like for you?
Well, it was it was like for any person who's doing a graphic memoir or graphic novel, it's a lot of physical labor for
Hmm.
probably a
Hmm.
period of time. It took me 4 years to make it. Originally, it was written in a manuscript form in prose. Um, and it was already it's because it's continuation of The Genius Under the Table. I already had a contract and I was obliged to make the book. So I wrote the manuscript. Excuse me, my voice is bad today. I wrote the manuscript and submitted it to my publisher at Candlewick Press. To my wonderful editor, Elizabeth Bicknell, and she rejected it. She said, no, I can't publish this thing. And she was absolutely right because given the freedom of many words, I went into there. It wasn't a book for teens anymore. It was a book for adults because
Hmm.
I was already not a young age, and it was probably the darkest 3 years of my life, the last 3 years of my life in the Soviet Union. And some of the stuff was just too tough. But translating it into the sort of a graphic novel, graphic memoir format allowed me to evoke without actually spelling it out, even though it should be the opposite, but afterwards actually easier for me to do visually, to have a sense of kind of danger, but at the same time in a kind of whimsical way, not a humorous way, even though it's funny, some of it is funny, but sort of whimsical. And but it took a long, long time. It took 4 years
Yeah,
after. Yeah, it's
I
crazy.
imagine. Yeah.
It's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, you've recently won the National Jewish Book Award in the YAL category. So, what is that like to know that the story resonates in that way?
Um, you know, it's very very interesting because the book began originally as a kind of a warning from someone who lived in a dictatorship to those who are living in freedom, essentially saying, watch out, it can happen to you. So what will Americans do if it happens here? Just to be
Hmm.
aware that democracy is very fragile and could easily be taken away if you don't take care of it. But the time the book came out, of course, we had no King's protests and we had all
Hmm.
this march and we had all this stuff going on, right? So the material that was early 80s suddenly became very timely for the readers. And I think that probably is why the book caught so much attention because it is exactly what we are going through now in this country. Um, the other part of your question would be in terms of how does it feel to get that? Um, I don't, I do get awards. I just don't be like, I'll be honest. I do get them. And for me, what they do for me is to make me bolder on the page.
Mhm.
They gave me courage to not to second guess myself, trust my intuition, just forge forward. I have nothing to lose. I'm too old anyway. So if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But at least the word allows me to um, be bold and courageous and honest, particularly because I write so much about sort of my own experiences and I put myself into every single character that I write, So I think kids are very sensitive to when they feel like it's not really genuine when the writer, when the author puts something down. And I know that I am even when I'm reading young adult literature or teen literature or middle grade literature, where the author creates a situation that is one can only think of survival and self survival, and then these kids, do something greatly heroic for somebody else while their lives are in terrible danger. And it often feels, not that it doesn't happen, but it happens regularly in children's literature. And so, I kind of want to make sure that we understand who we are and be responsible for who we are for our actions, right?
Sort of leads to the question of what makes young adult literature kind of this ideal space for telling these stories and exploring these ideas.
Well, I think that not only young adult, but also teen, I think it's those periods when it's a periods of change for them. It's a period where they are trying different identities and they become, I can be this, I can be that, I can be the other. And they have so many choices right now and so many kind of forceful offerings to become a certain way. There's a peer pressure. There's just a lot of stuff going on at that time, and I think for me that period is probably the most important in our lives when we kind of make a choice really who we are going to be. Um,
Mhm.
and I want to contribute to that moment in a kind of positive way, in a way that gives them courage, in a way that tells them, no, life is not all going to be great. It's going to be really problematic and difficult, and bad things will and might happen and will happen. And do you have that core within you? Do you trust yourself? What will you do in this situation? Yeah, I'm just trying to put them in if you write the character, you can only know the character if you put that character under tremendous pressure, right? In a
Mhm.
situation of crisis. If you and I are sitting here chatting, everything's okay, you have books behind you, I have like tea in front of me, everything's good, right? I'm in
Mhm.
California, so weather's good, everything's good. It's not us. But if you and I were in a very difficult situation right now, that's where our characters would come out. We would not be playing the role of the interviewer and the author. We would be who we really are. So I'm trying to create those situations dramatically. So first of all, they keep reading. And second of all, that it's a test to, to, to ask themselves, what would I do
Mhm.
if it
Mhm.
happens to? And I think that age, young adults and teens, this is where we need to really make a difference if we can as authors.
Absolutely. Absolutely. As you are exploring your story and putting this work together, how do you take care of yourself in that process? What's that emotional balance like for you?
It's huge. I mean, the title of the last book says it all, really. No, I did
Hmm.
not want to say that. I did not want to revisit those those years that were very difficult for me that I was actually trying to forget rather than, re-inhabit them dramatically. Um, so one thing that I did, and then my editor sort of went along with it. I created this kind of a distance between myself, who am I, and who the character Evgeny Yelchin is in the book. So in our conversation, we never said I did this or you did this. It was also Evgeny did this, Evgeny did that. So I kind of made that split, and it helps to see yourself more clearly and to be more honest about yourself because you're looking at yourself as a character.
Hmm.
The writing about yourself is fraught with all kind of dangers, right? You want people to like you, which is normal, but you want to be honest at the same time. So for me, it was abandon all caution. It's not you. Just write exactly the way you remember you acted in those situations, and it was not pretty. It was not pretty. I wasn't great. I wasn't. Fear ran very deeply, and I lied. Absolutely. All of this that you read in the book is true. Is true. And I didn't want to make it any nicer. So that's how you do it. I think you try to be as because what happens in the difference between an adult memoir and a memoir for children or for young readers is that in an adult memoir, you write from two points of view, from you as your young self, right, your former self,
Hmm.
but from a wisdom of your present self, on seeing in the past and seeing the patterns and understanding what you did right, what you did wrong. And so you get both points of view at the same time, and it's very comforting in a way for the reader, because that person, hey, he survived. He's writing the book now, right?
Hmm.
Um, I sort of chose a more difficult way specifically because I write for younger audience, and I wanted to write from not from my present point of view, not from the knowledge that I have now, but from ignorance and arrogance and sort of survival of the way I was back then. So it's in the first person from me in my 20s, early 20s. And because I felt that then the truth will be kind of more raw, more immediate, and more engaging for the reader. But you have to separate yourself from it. It's like you play a part in the yeah on stage. It's the same thing. Does make sense?
Hmm. Hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. What are you exploring next in your work?
Well, well, there are so many issues right now. I've been trying to write a war, try to book about a war in Ukraine. Failed miserably. It's almost impossible to write about a war for me, because I want it to be an honest book, and the truth there is horrific. So that sort of didn't go anywhere. I wrote a little kind of charming, I can say that, sort of a charming middle grade novel, fairly short, called The Girl Made of Iron. About based in kind of my whole family comes from Ukraine, and only my mother and my grandmother and one of our cousins survived. Everybody else left, and they were all, killed by the Nazis. So I kind of wanted to write a book about not about the war, that war, but about earlier, about sort of this Jewish culture there that was constantly dealing with um, this idea of anti-Semitism and pogroms. And my grandma lived through all of that, and I heard all of those stories, and I kind of knew a lot of what was going on through her. So the book is kind of based on her. It's a very funny book. It's told from a point of view of a horse, but it does speak about very serious matters that still, unfortunately, very much alive and with us today.
Yeah. Yeah. I know that you're tackling issues and exploring ideas, and glad that you're telling those stories.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very
Yeah.
much, Ethan. Thank you.
Yeah.
My work is online and in bookstores, just through all the regular channels. I have a website that fairly comprehensive. It's eugeneyelchin.com. Because I do all kinds of stuff. I don't only make books. I do other things, and it's actually four websites under one roof. Dedicated to the painting, to film work, to design. Just all kinds of stuff there. So people can find it there if they like. But I'm easily found, and they can email me, speak to me. I answer all emails, all the letters through the website. There's my email there, so it's easy.
Well, I'm always glad to have you on. I'm so glad that we could connect again. And the channel is open anytime you want to talk about your work, share ideas. And again, much appreciation.
Thank you so much, Jason.